If you're a Bronco fan, you never want to hear, and if you'd known, like, hey, how are things going to go this season when you're hearing, hey, we signed Blake Bortles to a free agent contract, that's not a good sign. All right, so I'm curious on this. I want to open up phone lines, 877-996-6369. Eddie, you've been doing the updates. I don't know what the total number of fines that have been levied are. You may know off the top of your head over head coaches not wearing their mask correctly on the sideline.
I want to say six.
Six, and they're all like $100,000 fines, right?
Yes, that's correct. And the organizations, I believe, were hit with $250,000 fines.
Right. Okay. So for you guys, I'm going to allow everybody to call in and give their reaction as well. 877-996-6369. Is this anything other than cosmetic theater? They are testing everybody every day. I'm imagining that coaches aren't probably wearing masks every minute of every day when they're coaching practice and everything else. None of the players are in masks. They are talking to each other. They are tackling each other. They are sweating all over each other. They are doing everything that you would normally do during an NFL game. How much of this feels like cosmetic theater? Again, if you're testing every single day, is it really necessary? And there are no fans present and nobody's anywhere near you. Is it really necessary at all for coaches to have masks on? I mean, it obviously feels like coaches, if they are just not holding the masks up and everything else, it obviously feels like they think this is a bit ridiculous. And I know we had the Andy Reid sideline face mask fog up situation in the opening kickoff of the season. But is this anything other than cosmetic theater? If you're testing every day, why do the coaches need to have masks on during the game on the sideline? Does this make any sense to you, Danny G?
No, and when you count in John Gruden and Sean Payton, we're now well over $1 million in fines.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. I don't know, except for if you pull an Andy Reid, maybe the NFL should have ahead of time put some protocol in place where they gave each coach a special face mask like that with the defogger already on the shield.
Yeah, maybe, but what I'm saying is, what are you, for instance, the NBA, the head coaches for a while wore masks, right? Am I not mistaken about that? Didn't the head coaches?
You're right, yep.
And now they're not doing it. At least they weren't doing it last night.
I guess it's a little different because they're still in a bubble. Like on Hard Knocks, they showed the Chargers and the Rams all wearing masks at camp. And then, of course, there were times where they had to pull them down to communicate.
The example is that I was really thinking about it was at the end of Monday Night Football, John Gruden is like basically celebrating with Josh Jacobs and other players.
Yep.
None of the players are wearing masks. All of them are in close contact with John Gruden. Like, he is wearing a mask. And it's got to be hard to talk into that headset and be able to hear and have them hear you going back and forth communication-wise. It doesn't seem like that actually is making anything safer at all. It's like wearing a mask to walk into a restaurant, and then as soon as you sit down at the table, you can take it off. I've got a poll question up for you guys, and it is, in the wake of the NFL fining several head coaches $100,000 each for not appropriately wearing masks, does it make sense at all for NFL coaches to be wearing masks on the sideline? I'm opening up the phone lines to let you guys weigh in, 877-996-6369. The NFL is testing daily for whether or not guys are going to be positive for COVID. And no players are wearing masks at all. They are tackling each other. They are shaking hands at the end of the game, after the games are over. They are walking around on the sideline, talking with each other throughout the game. Yet NFL coaches are expected to either be wearing masks or be wearing those shields. And again, I think it's fine if somebody wants to do that, right? But what you are doing when you are wearing a mask is protecting someone else, right, from being able to be infected. So the coaches themselves are still under risk to be infected by a player. And if it's safe for the players to tackle each other, to sweat all over each other, to give high fives at the end of the game with opposing players that they know meeting at midfield, how is it an issue that the coaches have to wear masks. I don't understand it at all. And I don't think it makes very much logical sense. To me, this is akin to if you walk into a restaurant, at least where I live right now, some places will require you to have a mask on. And then as soon as you are seated at your table, you take the mask off and you don't have the mask on the rest of the time you're in the restaurant. So what is the point of having a mask to walk to your table for less than 1% basically of the time that you're in the restaurant? You wear a mask, and then when you're seated at the table, you immediately take it off. And the same thing would be true. Like, I think it's weird if you have to go to the bathroom, you put your mask on to walk to the bathroom, but as soon as you're back at the table, you take it off. Like, so I just, the whole thing is totally illogical. Does wearing the masks, and I'm thinking about it because they're getting fined $100,000 for this, it feels like 100% cosmetic theater for coaches to have to wear masks on the sideline. That is, it doesn't seem like we're actually protecting anything. And for the coach's perspective, I understand why they would not be wearing the masks accurately a lot of the time, because they're trying to talk on their headset, and I'm sure it's more difficult to hear for the people who are listening to you on the headset when you have to have your mask on. And I think I'm correct that if you're in the boxes, right, if you're upstairs in the boxes, you don't have to have a mask on. If you're an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator up there, what are we doing here? Is this just cosmetic theater? Does it make any sense to you, Danny G?
I'm with you on this one. I think it is cosmetic theater. And I don't agree with fining these coaches over this unless you have a functional solution for how a coach can wear a mask and still communicate with everyone. Because I know there's other jobs, like here in Sherman Oaks, California, there's signs all over saying we're required to wear a mask, but we can't do that and talk on our microphones at the same time. So, and with the coaches, like you said, and they said during the broadcast on Monday Night Football, you'll notice how John Gruden has to keep pulling his mask down to call the plays.
Right.
So it's not.
If I'm a coach and my choice is I'm going to get fined, but I know 100% that everybody is going to be able to hear the play that I call, or I'm going to save the money, but 2 or 3 times during the course of the game, my play call is not going to be as crisply heard as it ordinarily would be, I'm paying the $100,000 fine. And you know what? If I own a franchise, I would want to just go ahead and pay my coaches fine too. Because if it cost me $1.6 million, if that's the fine, $100,000 a game, and I can pay $1.6 million and all my coaches, if they choose to, cannot wear masks, I'd be inclined to just go ahead and cut the check. I mean, it's a charitable donation, so it's not like it's a huge major issue, right? People don't understand when you get fined in sports, it goes to charity, so you get a tax deduction for it. If I'm a billionaire owner and my team thinks that they're more efficient, more better able to coach without having to wear masks, I just say screw it. Like, I'll pay the fine. It just doesn't make any sense. Dub, does this make any sense to you?
It really doesn't, and it kind of makes me, they have all these awesome testing results, but they're still making the coaches
and
wear
they're
masks.
testing every single day.
I mean, if you're a logical person and you think about this intelligently, wouldn't you kind of have to question the testing results then if they're still making everyone wear a mask? I mean, I'm not saying I'm questioning any of the testing results, but I'm just saying, why do they still have to wear a mask?
My big question is, logically, what are you protecting, right? It's the same thing that I think. And look, I'm not one of these people who would fight in going into a business. If somebody wants me to put a mask on, like, we require people to have shirts and shoes on. That's been on the door for going into a McDonald's or whatever it is for years, as long as I can remember. No shirts, no shoes, no service, right? And so I get the idea that a business can have a requirement, and I'm not going to throw a fit about it. But I do wonder about the logic of it every single time I walk into a restaurant. And when I walk up to get my table, I have a mask on 30 seconds later, when I'm seated at the table, I take my mask off and leave it off from that point forward. And by the way, where I live, there's no mask mandate anywhere now, right? So the number of cases have plummeted. My kids are in school face-to-face. The kids wear masks. And look, I mean, I understand that concept when everybody is wearing a mask, right? But the players aren't doing it. So it seems to defeat the entire purpose to require the coaches to do it. It doesn't seem logical at all to me. It feels like cosmetic theater. It's sort of an exercise in absurdity. What about you, Eddie Garcia? Does it feel ridiculous to you when you watch NFL games? And by the way, you can go vote in this poll if you would like to. You can also call us 877-996-6369. Thousands of people have already voted in this poll. In fact, 4,000 of you, 93% of you think it makes no sense for NFL coaches to be wearing masks on the sideline. You can go vote in this yourself. 93% of my audience right now voting says it makes no sense. And the reason why I think it's a storyline is because, again, the NFL is fining coaches $100,000 each. What about you, Eddie? Does it make any sense?
It's 100% cosmetic. There's no doubt about it. You've got players intermingling with other players on the field. They're not wearing masks at all, and they're coming to the sidelines, and the coaches are intermingling with them. What's the difference? Why? It makes no sense. It's 100% cosmetic.
It's total lunacy, I think. What about you, Roberto?
Yeah, it's cosmetic. I agree with you guys. And that means they would have to fine the referee, right? Because every time he's got him, he has to
pull down his mask.
Exactly.
To be
so
able to
fine the referees
his,
also if you're fighting the coaches, because the coaches got to communicate with the verbiage and everything. And they got to be heard clear, so the referees do the same thing. So why are you guys is the NFL gonna fine the referees also?
Yeah, it's a great point on that. And by the way, I don't know how many other people have been out at restaurants. Like, I went to Buffalo Wild Wings. They get a free shout out here. I took my kids Monday. My 9-year-old was turning officially 10 years old. He had a sleepover with a bunch of his 10-year-old friends. And so I'm like, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to go watch all the NFL games at Buffalo Wild Wings. I want to get wings. It's perfect advertisement for them, right? So I had with me, my wife and I met my sister and my brother-in-law. And between us, I think we had like 9 kids there who were 10 or under, right? Entire table full of kids. And our waitress was coming around. It's loud in a Buffalo Wild Wings when all the games are going on, right? That's why people go. It's awesome to be able to have all the different games going on. And she would ask a question, and I bet most of you who have been in a crowded restaurant or in a restaurant where there's televisions on or whatever else, like sometimes I couldn't hear her. And so I'd have to be like, so she's got a mask on. And sometimes I'd have to be like, sorry, I can't hear what you're asking. And by the way, I also had, 9, 10-year-old kids and younger behind me screaming and yelling the whole time too, which you can well imagine. Our waitress did an incredible job. But she had to every now and then pull down her mask so that I could hear what she was saying in a crowded restaurant, right? That's not her doing anything wrong at all. That's the reality of that situation. And so you just mentioned what I think is a good point, Roberto. Like, the NFL has to have a guy pull down his mask in order to announce what the penalties are. Why do they not recognize in the NFL offices that coaches have to pull down their masks in order many times to make calls as well? And I just wonder if a coach just said, screw it, and basically just tossed the mask to the side, what the response would be. We got a bunch of people who want to weigh in. Let's go to the VIP line to start. Who's up first? Danny G.
Let's go to Pat in San Antonio.
Pat, does it make any sense at all?
Oh, no, not at all. Belichick won this battle. He folds the bottom of the mask so he could speak, but his mask is over his nose.
Yeah.
He doesn't get charged $100,000, still gets his play call in. Seahawks fan. And then Pete Carroll, after the game, talks about how he was wrong and he should have done it. So unfortunately, it's going back to the woke thing where you've got to tell everybody that you're wrong for not wearing a mask, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Thank you for the call, and thanks for being an Outkick VIP. You can go sign up at Outkick.com, be a VIP, and you get the access to the front of the line with that phone number that he just called. All right, Dub, who's up next?
We got Manuel in California.
Manuel, does it make sense for coaches to have masks when no players do?
Clayton, buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Absolutely not, for the reason that you said, and that's a big part of it. Since they test every day, then it's a controlled environment, so they don't really need it. Now, if they're going to find somebody, they should be finding that plastic surgeon that keeps doing work on Pete Carroll. I mean, the guy goes under the knife more than that old Ginsu chef.
Thanks for the call. Pete Carroll, just driving into work early in the morning in Seattle. Like, hey, our team's pretty good this year. How about that win we had on Sunday? I'll flip on Clay Travis, see what he's talking about this morning, get my latest sports news. Boom, off the top. Was it Manuel?
Manuel and Gardena, he's a radio legend.
Yeah, he's
here
a
in LA.
legendary AM 570 caller.
I got you. He's up early. Who's up next, Dub?
We got Jim in Orlando.
Jim, does it make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense at all, Clay. Totally agree with you. I think it's all for image connected with what we've seen this past year on social media. The NFL is worried. Their knees are shaking about what the response is going to be. And something connected with that, I was on Twitter or Instagram, one of those horrible sites this week, I know. I mean, we all have that same addiction sometimes. But I was on there, and I saw this picture of Sean Payton with a promo for mask on, and then right next to it was a picture of him with his mask off at the game. Now, and then everyone was commenting on it, all the left just being all upset about it. And I think it's the NFL just being worried about everything.
Yeah, Sean Payton, thanks for the call. Sean Payton in particular has already had the coronavirus. So there's a very low chance that you are going to be able to get the coronavirus again. In fact, if you can get the coronavirus again, then it defeats the entire purpose of a vaccine. And I don't know that a lot of the vaccine people out there have recognized this. If the coronavirus is recatchable, it would mean that a vaccine is not going to work. So you just have to get used to the fact that there might be a danger from the coronavirus and get on with your life. But Sean Payton has already had it, meaning in theory he has a certain amount of immunity, meaning wearing the mask actually makes zero sense for him.
I believe Gruden said he had it as well.
Gruden had it as well. So, what in the world sense does it make if you're being tested every day and you've already had the coronavirus? It doesn't make any sense at all to require a guy to be wearing a mask. And again, I bet nobody else. This is a good test. Do you think, and we got a bunch of people still who want to weigh in, but quickly going around the horn, will anybody else with a national radio show be willing to point out the absurdity of NFL coaches wearing masks for fear that people will get mad at them, even though among voters right now, anybody can go vote, thousands of you are voting, and almost every single sports fan out there thinks it's absurd. 93% of my votes right now, over 6,000 of you have voted in the first 15 minutes. 93% of you think it's ridiculous for NFL coaches to be required to wear a mask. Will anybody else with a national radio show even mention these fines or how ridiculous they are? What do you think, Danny G?
I'm going to say no.
Yeah. What do you think, Dub?
Yeah, probably not. No.
Yeah. What do you think, Eddie?
Maybe someone else on this network, but certainly not at the other network that's going on.
Maybe Ben Maller might mention it.
Ben might do it, yeah.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, he already did.
Yeah, he already mentioned it. All right, Ben is willing to actually speak out the truth to power occasionally, but I bet nobody else will. Anybody else, Roberto?
Yeah, no, nobody else will.
All right, so if everybody is agreeing almost unanimously, do we have anybody else who wants to weigh in, Dub, before we finish?
Yeah, we got a couple more. We can make them quick. You want to go to them now?
Let's go to those, and then I'll finish off with my thought. Who's up next?
All right, we got Dan in the Pacific Northwest.
Dan in the Pacific Northwest. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm a business owner in the stand business, and think of yourself walking through the door of a restaurant like an aerosol can spraying. When you get to your seat, take it off, you're limiting the contact area. And as far as Belichick goes, if someone like him got COVID, passed away, they'd probably shut down the league with a high-profile guy like that. And I'll also add that Belichick doesn't even know how to buy a mask. I mean, that thing was ridiculous. It's the worst-fitting mask I think I've ever seen. Also, I don't know, the only thing higher than 93% is your staff
disagreeing with you, which it's about 2%.
There's a couple of different directions that went. My staff, the people disagree with me all the time on the show.
Yeah.
I mean,
we spend half the morning rolling our eyes.
Yeah. All right. So that's a great call. No, the argument that it makes sense for you that you're somehow protecting people by wearing a mask to walk to your seat, and for the 99% plus time that you're otherwise in the restaurant, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, there's no way. It's cosmetic theater. And that's what the NFL is doing by requiring masks, in my opinion. You can go vote if you disagree. 93% of you right now, with thousands of people voting, think that it makes no sense for NFL coaches to be wearing masks. And on top of that, I would imagine the number of people who think they deserve to be fined $100,000 is even lower, because you got to be able to do your job. And oftentimes that requires you to pull your mask down. Who's up next?
All right, last one. We got Caroline in Atlanta.
Caroline, does it make sense?
It does not make sense. Thank goodness for the Braves, and I'm still bruised over the Falcons this weekend. But I totally agree with what you guys have all said. And a previous caller made a comment about perhaps the NFL is doing this because they're worried. I can tell you that in my area of the woods and among my friends, I'm one of the few people even still watching the NFL, and that's because I play fantasy football. The NFL does have things to be worried about, and if they don't wake up, they are going to lose fans like me who've been watching for 50 years.
Thank you for the call, and I'm sorry about the Falcons. I feel like I should have to say that to every Atlanta area sports fan, but at least the Braves won. Now, the downside is now it's October, and usually the Braves don't win very much when it gets to October. But I do think I would love for coaches to just come out. I think coaches are terrified to say it and just point out the logical flaws that I have pointed out here. Wait a minute. Every player is not wearing a mask, right? Yeah, that's right. We talk to the players throughout the entire game, right? Yes, you do. We get tested every single day, right? Yes, you do. There's no fans that are able to even have close access, even for the limited number of stadiums that have fans present. There's no fans that are close enough to be able to have any sort of infection issue with the players or the coaches. This is totally nonsensical. It is completely 100% illogical. And almost no one is going to say it because they're afraid that somebody will get mad at them on social media for actually raising questions like these. It's absurd.